This is Block 10, the 1960s, Part 4, and From the Shadows, with the section beginning with environmentalism. As we saw in Block 9, during the administration of Richard Nixon, the United States first took steps towards restoring the American environment that had really kind of been ignored in large part since industrialization began. And the fact of the matter was, by 1965, after 100 years of industrialization and urbanization, America's industrial states, New York, New Jersey, Ohio, Illinois, had been turned in large measure into giant cesspools of pollution. And so, smog was a constant fact of life in Los Angeles, a combination of smoke and fog. That acid rain, turned huge swaths of forest in the Northeast into, dead zones. And most famously of all, which one of the things that kind of kicked off the environmental movement was the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland. The river caught fire. There was so much oil and pollution and other things in the river that the river caught fire. And, I mean, you want to just see something ridiculous. Here's Cuyahoga River and it's flammable sign, which, and that kind of said, Americans kind of sat up and said, whoa, what's kind of going on here? That, industrialization was and is a wonderful thing. It brought untold wealth to untold millions of people. It made the common man's life easier, wealthier, healthier. That people, for thousands upon thousands of years, humanity, worried about starvation, and industrialization ended those worries. In terms of keeping warm, keeping clean, industrialization was nothing but an incredible boon to the people of the world. That does not mean it did not have a downside, and its downside, as we see here and as we know, is pollution. By 1965, America's air is dirty, its water was polluted, and, species were disappearing from the American landscape. The buffalo had almost been hunted to extinction in the 1880s. It had been brought back, but, even, animals like the bald eagle were threatened with extinction. Along with the fire of the Cuyahoga River, a book by a writer by the name of Rachel Carson really kind of kicked the American people in the rear end and kind of got the American people more concerned about the environment. Rachel Carson was trained as a biologist, and she wrote a book called Silent Spring, in which, Silent Spring was, its focus was on the chemical DDT, which was harming birds by making their eggshells very weak, so they had trouble giving birth to healthy baby birds. But her entire book turned the American people towards, caring about the environment more than they had in a very long time. And it woke Americans up to the downside of industrial society. So one of the One of the things that you get, from Rachel Carson in 1970 was the celebration of the first Earth Day. The fact of the matter is that, we can't escape, green, today. Everyone should be green, go green, do green things, be good to the earth. And in general, yeah, we of course we ought to be good to the earth. But this started in the late 60s and early 1970s with Rachel Carson and her Earth Day. In the intervening years, from 1970, incredible amounts of environmental laws and regulations have been passed in the United States, and as a result, pollution is at its lowest level in the United States since before the Industrial Revolution. That our air is cleaner, our water is cleaner, our soil is cleaner than it ever has been before. We have more trees living in the United States than any time since, before, any time ever, almost. That the level of forestation in the United States is vast, contrary to, popular imagination. But there are more trees now than there ever have been. Just as, other 1960s movements created radicalism, the environmental movement certainly did as well. And are with us today, the more alarmist members of the global warming crowd, and groups like the Earth Liberation Front, the Animal Liberation Front. These groups engage in acts of terror and arson in order to protect animals and the natural world. destroying scientific labs, destroying houses, businesses, etc., etc. There are some groups, and you can easily find them on the interwebs if you are so inclined. Some groups even propose the purposeful extinction of the entire human species, and they see, humanity as this awful, evil group of people bent on raping, pillaging, and destroying good Mother Earth. Environmentalism, like Marxism, can be easily seen. It has attributes of religious belief. But that's its extremists. For most of us, most people care about the environment. They don't want to breathe in dirty air. They don't want to drink dirty water. And it's a matter of finding that right balance between industrialization and the environment, so we can all, live materially happy and healthy and wealthy lives, and also take care of this little blue dot hanging in space that, we all call home. And Rachel Carson played a huge role in kind of waking up the American people to the fact that there was a balancing act that needed to be done.